insurance, and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com. We're back, 365 Sports. Sorry about a couple of technical things that popped up, and thank you, Jack McKenzie and Garrett Ross, for getting us back on track, the chat room back on track. Brian Murphy, WRAL-TV, joins us on 365 Sports. Brian, you watched that college athletic summit in D.C. We've seen college athletic directors and administrators and presidents, NCAA, go in front of those in Congress or whatever. Was there anything different today than you've seen before?
It didn't feel a whole lot different. I think the fact that they all went to D.C., to have Nick Saban there, to have Greg Sankey there, Jim Phillips, the commissioner of the ACC, was there, to have them, actually meeting with lawmakers, Charlie Baker, of course, feels a little bit different. But, Charlie Baker seemed optimistic that maybe something will happen this fall, but I think he was alone in that optimism, I think.
Brian, it would seem to me that the issue of preemption in the overall bill that Charlie Baker talked about would be problematic, given that that is not really how things are going. If a state wants to do something, pretty much, that's what it is now, and the federal government hasn't stood in their way. And I would just use the example of marijuana as that's something that the federal government hasn't addressed yet, but let happen on the state level. Why would NIL be different?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, these senators, and I covered Congress for a while, these senators and representatives are very protective of these college programs. There's a ton of pride in Alabama football or University of Texas football. And so if you can pitch them on an idea that, hey, look, California is about to destroy college athletics by forcing revenue sharing, and that means that Alabama and Texas may never win another national championship, you start to get their attention in a way that, maybe with marijuana or some of these other bills, you don't get their attention. And so I think that's the hope. The hope is they say, hey, look, Missouri just passed this bill, which basically tells us that we can't even enforce our own rules. California may pass this bill that has to do with revenue sharing, and that will change, the very essence of college football, I think, or college athletics. And I think they're counting on everybody loves their own college team, and there's college teams in all 50 states, at least, at some level of the NCAA. I think they're counting on that to kind of mobilize Congress to do something that, quite frankly, this Congress really hasn't been mobilized to do much of.
Do you feel like that Charlie Baker is a breath of fresh air in this particular setting because of that's one of the reasons he was hired, because he kind of knows how to work the room and politics of it. Did you like kind of how he presented the argument?
I did. I thought he was, I thought the summit was really well done. There were differing viewpoints, which sometimes you get the same old kind of corporate speak. I thought there was the guy, Walker Jones, who's with the Grove Collective at Ole Miss, and is sort of free from the shackles of being a bureaucrat, was able to speak freely and said, hey, look, 90 to 95% of the money we get is for talent acquisition and talent retention. Those are things that administrators just really can't say. But I thought Baker, basically said, I've got this long list of problems and we're going to tick through them as fast as we can, but that means there are going to be some problems that we can't get to. including like what to do with all this new college football playoff money. He's like, that's not a fight I can win at the moment. So I'm going to try to win some fights that I can win. So, yeah, I mean, he certainly handles it better than the previous president did. Whether he'll get better results, I mean, that's what they're paying him for. And it's just hard to see this Congress like moving on anything important or divisive like, college athletics. So I thought Bubba Cunningham, who's the athletic director at UNC, asked a really good question. And his question was, all right, we're asking for this, right? We're asking for protection from all these NIL rules. Well, what is Congress going to ask of us? What are we going to have to give up to get that? Baker didn't have a great answer for that, but one of the things he said was, they want to know about the welfare of student athletes. So does that mean they have to give them more, longer time to complete their degree? Does that mean they have to provide medical benefits for players or mental health treatment or, rules about transferring? So there is going to be some give and take. They're not just going to get everything they want from Congress without having to make some changes to the way NCAA operates.
Brian, do you feel that even though there are differing viewpoints that everybody is on the same page? I do know that, the comments from Hunter Yurachek yesterday kind of show that, there's some people here who are still maybe stuck in the dark ages when it comes to this, but everybody is on the same page about moving forward, that almost everything that the NCAA is doing is wrong now and they have to change it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there does seem to be at least some unanimity around NIL, like how we got to get our hands wrapped around NIL. There was a lot of talk about the transfer portal and maybe tightening up. They're never going to roll back all the freedom of movement, but tightening up multiple transfers, right? Like you get the one transfer free, but the second transfer is going to be a lot tighter now. But there does seem at least, or they'll never agree on everything, but there does seem at least around NIL to be like 2 or 3 things they need to get out of NIL, and that's some of this uniformity, maybe a standardized contract, maybe a registry.
Previously, but how much did your eyebrows raise when he started talking about sports betting and the future of that in college sports?
Yeah, I've been covering sports gambling here in North Carolina for the better part of 2 years, so that my eyes jumped out of my head a little bit with that. He seemed to talk about it being a huge opportunity for the NCAA to get involved in this space and maybe partner with some people. But then, then there was kind of a follow-up question, and he seemed to say, no, what I was saying is I'm terrified of what it's going to do to college athletics. He talked a lot. This is an argument I've heard here about so much betting is happening on our college campuses. And since you can bet on the point guard to score 18 points and he only scores 17, suddenly you have his classmates or his, people walking around campus with him who are mad at him because he didn't score enough points. And they have to deal with that. Student athletes have to deal with that. I don't know how large of a concern it is, but he really seemed to hammer that point home. So I couldn't tell if Baker wanted to get into bed with the gambling interest or if he was worried that they're just going to take over their campuses. But yeah, he talked a lot about sports gambling, and it's here. I mean, North Carolina just legalized it, or it's awaiting the governor's signature. They'll be the 28th state to do online sports gambling. It's certainly something the NCAA is going to have to figure out, given some of the scandals now, or I don't know if I want to call them scandals, but given some of the issues we've seen at Alabama and in Iowa, this is an issue that all of the NCAA is going to have to deal with.
All right, so here's a tweet from you on Greg Sankey taking what appears to be an absolute direct line at Brett Yormark. I've not been the one going to microphones saying that we're going to do this out west or we're not done. I've tried and still try to act responsibly, given that I think there are ripple effects from messaging from conference commissioners. Why did he just say Brett Yormark's name?
So I thought this was the most fascinating part. Sankey just unloaded. I mean, he got in some lines about the Big Ten as well and the distance of that conference, and compared to the trips in his conference, he said, the longest trip in the SEC is shorter than the shortest trip. Keep relationships, but he was pretty clear that was not the way that he would handle things, and it was interesting. You don't often hear these conference commissioners, lay into one another, by name or not by name, but that's uncommon behavior.
But one of the reasons the Big 12 is scratching and clawing in Yormark is because of the two big bullies, right? The SEC and also the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I mean,